and welcome to the SDG Business Forum. That's a group which was co-hosted by the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UN Global Contact, and International Chamber of Commerce. And what it does is highlight companies that are using their influence as a positive agent of change in their local communities and around the world. So today's 2022 SDG Business Forum is going to provide an opportunity for business leaders to hear from members of the interdependent group of scientists appointed by the Secretary General to draft the 2023 Global Sustainable Development Report, which is mandated to inform the midterm review of the SDGs at the SDG Summit in 2023. So I'm delighted to be here. My name's Gillian Tett. I'm the chair of the editorial board for the US and Financial Times, and also I co-founded a platform called Moral Money at the FT, which looks at sustainability. So before we get started, a couple of quick housekeeping remarks. Firstly, if you haven't used this virtual platform before, you should know that you should update your profile to get your name, title, and even a photograph on it so you can get to know each other. And you can do that by selecting the circle in the upper right-hand side of your screen where it has your initials. So select that circle and you can get and update your profile. Now, as an attendee, you're on the main stage where all the sessions are taking place, but to the right of the screen, you've got a chat box where you can share your thoughts during the day. And you can also network with other people by selecting the DM tab, that's the DM tab, on the chat to actually email or message them. So I suggest you try out the chat box feature now by commenting and seeing whether it works or not. So we're going to be keeping the lounges open throughout the day. So if you want to go and talk specifically to fellow attendees by messaging them, you can go off and do that. You don't have to stay on the main stage. And of course, part of the whole point of the day is to promote networking. So that's the housekeeping. And without further ado, let's start the session by introducing His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, who's going to be sharing some thoughts about the work of the SDG Business Forum.
Dear friends, I'm pleased to greet the 7th Annual SDG Business Forum. I welcome your efforts to bring the private sector together to rescue the Sustainable Development Goals. Our world is grappling with cascading crises, conflicts, climate change, COVID-19. Lives and livelihoods are being devastated by extreme weather events, supply chain disruptions, runaway inflation, and ever-growing inequality. We must act now to transform education and healthcare, to create opportunities for young people and women, to keep the 1.5 degrees Celsius target alive, invest in renewable energies, and climate-proof our economies. The private sector is critical. Platforms like the SDG Business Forum are crucial for fostering innovation, building partnerships, driving accountability, and ensuring that business practices are aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. Together, let us build prosperous and resilient businesses, economies, and societies for all. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed. And now we're going to be hearing from the Undersecretary General of Economic and Social Affairs for the UN, Lee Jun-ha, and the CEO and Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations Global Compact, Sanda Ojiambo. Over to you, Mr. Lee.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to begin by thanking the International Chamber of Commerce and the United Nations Global Compact for another successful SDG Business Forum. I'm particularly pleased to note the continued close collaboration with my department, UN DESA, on the arrangements for the forum. The 7th SDG Forum is taking place at a particularly challenging time for the international community amidst cascading crises of war, pandemic, climate, debt, and unrest. Over just a few years, the COVID-19 pandemic has reversed years of hard-earned development gains prices of food, fertilizer, and energy are skyrocketing, triggering a cost of living crisis across the globe and further shrinking the physical space in developing countries. Despite these headwinds, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development remains our best shared guidepost to overcome the current challenges and build a better world. To achieve the necessary transformations at the scale and the speed needed, the scientific community has identified 6 central areas for action. These include 1. Advancing human well-being. 2. Creating economies that work for everyone. 3. Improving how we produce and consume food. 4. Expanding energy access and decarbonization. 5. Promoting sustainable cities. And 6. Safeguarding our environmental global commons. Today's SDG Business Forum will focus on a number of these areas and on the crucial role that private sector can play. As the engine that drives much of the world's economic activity, you will be critical partners in efforts to transform the way we live, work, travel, interact, consume, and produce. I hope this forum will identify and seize opportunities for game-changing commitments, bold leadership, and practical steps for turning away from business as usual. As we continue to navigate the current challenges, the global community is already looking ahead to several landmark events that will take place next year. This includes the UN 2023 Water Conference in March, which is the first time that in more than 40 years that the United Nations will be addressing this critical topic. And the next SDG Summit in September 2023, which will be a crucial stock-taking moment and opportunity to re-energize our collective efforts. It will be important to have private sector perspective in these and other critical moments for global action, and that I encourage you to take active part. We cannot make the SDG a reality without active engagement from the private sector. We count on your continued efforts to protect the global environmental commons, including through assessing and addressing the full impact of your business operations on the people and the planet throughout the value chain. We call on you to help foster a just and inclusive economy that invests in human well-being and capabilities, that provides decent jobs and opportunities for all, and eliminates all forms of discrimination and exclusions. We count on your continued leadership to drive technology and innovation, which will lead us to better solutions to tackle the various global challenges of our times. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let us use today's SDG Business Forum to learn from each other's successes and failures. Let us use this opportunity to share our ideas and innovations and foster new connections and partnerships. Let us join forces to build a more inclusive, sustainable, and a greener world for current and future generations. I wish you fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Excellencies, business leaders, distinguished guests, it's my sincere pleasure to welcome you to the 7th Annual SDG Business Forum. On behalf of the United Nations Global Compact, I'd like to sincerely thank our co-hosts, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, DESA, and the International Chamber of Commerce, the ICC, for their collaboration on this event and for their partnership in mobilizing the private sector to support the Sustainable Development Goals. Our goal is to facilitate meaningful, inclusive dialogue between business leaders and other key stakeholders, including governments and the scientific community, to innovate long-lasting solutions for a more sustainable future. Today, more than ever before, we need to join forces. And as you heard from Secretary General Guterres and Under-Secretary General of Economic and Social Affairs, Li Junhua, unprecedented global crises are steadily eroding the last decade of development achievements. Food shortages, energy shocks, and widening inequalities are wreaking havoc in nations, both rich and poor. For the second year in a row, the world is no longer making progress on the Sustainable Development Goals. Nothing short of effective multi-stakeholder collaboration, informed by the scientific community, will help us implement the transformational change that humanity desperately needs. Towards this goal, businesses will have the opportunity to hear from members of the independent group of scientists appointed by the Secretary General to draft the 2023 Global Sustainable Development Report. Ladies and gentlemen, as you gather here today, climate change presents the single biggest threat to sustainable development, and time is quickly running out to avert its most devastating impacts. The UN Global Compact calls on all companies to set near-term science-based targets aligned with a 1.5-degree pathway and long-term science-based targets aligned with the new net zero standard. Self-declared goals are not enough. Companies must ensure that their targets are verifiable, up to date with the latest climate science, and are being reported and monitored transparently. I'm happy to report that companies with approved targets through the Science-Based Targets Initiative, which the Global Compact is a founding partner, are demonstrating significant progress. In fact, typical SBTI-approved companies have been even more ambitious than the 1.5-degree trajectory, reducing emissions twice as fast as required. But businesses collectively need to do more to avoid practices that threaten the well-being of people and communities. This past July, the UN General Assembly declared access to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment a universal human right. This decision paves the way for both businesses and member states to accelerate the implementation of environmental and human rights commitments. That is why today I'm pleased to announce our new Business and Human Rights Accelerator, a 6-month program activating companies across industries and regions to move from commitment to action through an ongoing human rights due diligence process. The accelerator is designed to help companies understand when, where, and how they adversely impact human rights, while making clear how to prioritize the most salient issues for action. Companies will engage with global human rights experts to learn how to mitigate risks, track the effectiveness of their efforts, and communicate progress to stakeholders. I would like to invite all businesses to join the Business and Human Rights Accelerator today. With the right knowledge and tools, your company can be a champion for human rights and a powerful force for good. I hope that today's dialogue and our continued collaboration will accelerate progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals, advancing human rights and ensuring a net zero resilient future. Thank you.